I still can taste the soot on my tongue sometimes.
I remember the smoke coming up over downtown.
And then I remember around, I don't know, 9:30, my girlfriend woke me up and said, "You gotta come, check out the TV."
And we could see the smoke coming from over there, and then we realized it was no accident.
I remember watching the towers fall.
As a young filmmaker, the tragic events of September 11th impacted me in a way few other things have. I live outside of New York City, close enough to be personally affected by the tragedy, yet far enough away to have an outsider's perspective. I've seen the films that tell the most inspiring stories of courage and the most somber stories of loss. And while I'm sure there are many more great stories of personal triumph that haven't been told, this film will instead focus on the universal change of America in the aftermath of 9/11. Because not only did that day change history, it changed us all, and in more ways than one.
That day, man, that was an unbelievable day.
I mean, it was weird because it was like right after it happened, we walked around the street and it just felt like a war zone. Just like everything shut down. It was dead silent. There was like the mist in the city because of the smoke coming from the towers.
The traffic was subdued, people were subdued. It just seemed to be very quiet. Everybody looked worried.
New York City, everything shot.
That day, the world stopped. Struck by some of the most tragic images the world has ever seen, we were all shaken. But unlike the towers, we did not fall. United, we stood.
So just picture 6,000 or 7,000 people lined up, not saying a word, and a lot of guys and women waited online for 3-4 hours before they can get on a boat to go home, and everybody was just happy they were alive.
And but it was weird because everyone also became like family or something. Like all New Yorkers were friends, and it wasn't, like when you normally walk down the street and you see someone, you're like, yeah, it wasn't like that anymore. All of a sudden it was like, hey.
The feeling that sort of overwhelmed the city, just like there was smoke in the air and you had to wear masks, there was also this feeling you could feel in your hearts. Nothing really mattered except what had happened.
People being very nice to each other. I remember that going on for weeks.
I don't know, everybody seemed to be more relaxed and treating each other better, and I heard the crime rate went down, and it was really something.
Like another crazy thing is cabs and cars usually are always honking 24/7, all the time, doesn't even matter. Like they take 2 seconds when the light turns green, like and so right after it happened, there was like no honking. Like everyone's really nice, there's no honking, nobody's like, it was weird, it was really quiet. Like a few of my black friends were like, yeah, it was the first time, like I'm just, I could get a cab anywhere and they'd stop and pick me up. We weren't getting picked on anymore.
At a time of hardship, it was like we all remembered what was really important.
After September 11th, there were flags everywhere, and for the first time ever in my life, I had a sense of pride in the flag and in the history of that flag.
It means a lot to me. It's not just red, white, and blue. There's a lot behind it.
It was comforting to know that you were part of something, and that the reaction that this country would sort of prove like what the American flag means to us now.
When words like soldier and hero took on a new meaning, we realized they were walking among us the whole time.
We do kind of stupid things. We run into buildings while people are running out.
Their mind was set on one thing, and that was helping people. They didn't care. They all have families, wives, you know, kids, but all they could think about is going down and helping. They didn't care what they're about to go into, you know. So I was like, geez, you know, it's pretty amazing. And they do it every day.
I remember going into Jamaica, Queens in my unit, and we were, people loved us. They were cooking for us. They were giving us Gatorade. I remember a little kid coming up to me. You know, it was nice in that September, the weather. And I remember a little kid coming up to me, giving me his ice cream. And I said, what, are you crazy? And I went and gave him, you know, I bought ice cream, you know, for all his little friends.
I remember an experience in Union Square right after where a fire truck went by and everyone did like a standing ovation for those firemen. And it was a really beautiful experience to be a part of.
For me, I didn't have to buy a beer for 2 years. But, you know, as a single guy in the city at that point, you know, things were pretty good. I think people finally really recognized what these guys do. It was a great, I think, a great feeling of nationalism at that point. You know, 5 years later, things have changed.
I had hoped that people would stay that way forever, but it only took a few years for all of us to revert back to our old ways.
And you could start telling when people started kind of getting back into the groove of things, when all of a sudden, you know, you could start hearing all the honking again, and cabs were freaking out, honking about stupid things, and that was really bizarre too. Just to hear all of a sudden the honking was coming back. I don't know how to describe it, but, you know, all of a sudden it got loud again, and people just kind of, not forgot, but just kind of got into how it was before.
People, you know, are back to their lives, and they want to make their money, they want to get to where they're going, and sometimes we take things for granted and we forget.
After 9/11, things changed a little bit. People got back to their old routine, and things weren't like they were in the beginning.
Anytime you have to close down firehouses and you know, can't pay your cops to protect you, it's a sad thing, I think.
No, I don't think there were as many flags up after 9/11.
Sometimes drastic things make people change, but as far as permanent change, it just doesn't seem to stick. I don't know. It just goes back to the way it is.
Now, you know, things are back to normal.
The fact is, I was able to see firsthand what it was like for the greatest city in the world to be occupied by the greatest people in the world. For a time, not only New York, but the entire U.S. was a wonderful place to live in. Whether it was less car honking, more smiling, or a feeling of unity, life just felt a little more worth living. People say you don't know what you have until it's gone, and I think they're right. But out of all the things that were taken from us that day, what saddens me the most is the goodwill that we lost for each other, all on our own. So what happened? I'm not sure. Everything certainly is back to normal, but if there's one thing this tragedy taught me, it's that it doesn't have to be.
I kiss my wife and my kid every day I leave the house. I never forget. Because you just don't know if you're coming home. Not only if you're a policeman or a fireman or whatever you do, just as a regular Joe. Those poor people went to work that day, got on that elevator, went up to that 105th floor to make a living. And they didn't come home. You better not take that for granted.